moving back though. Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm the Regional Director of General Assembly Austin, and we are so excited to have you here. If you haven't already, feel free to grab some drinks in the back. We'll also have time for happy hour afterwards for y'all to get to meet one another and hang out and talk about what y'all heard here tonight. So just want to give a really brief introduction. So a little bit about General Assembly. Have any of you ever been to a General Assembly class or event before? Okay, just a couple of you. Well, that's all right, because we are brand new to town. So General Assembly is a global education company that's really focused on hands-on skill-based learning. So our mission is to empower individuals to pursue the work they love, and we do part of that through instruction within design, tech, and business. We have one-off classes and workshops in things like Introduction to UX or Programming for Non-Programmers. We have long-form part-time courses, like a 12-week course in front-end and user experience design, or a 10-week course in front-end web development. And then we have full-time programs that help people transition careers into UX design, web development, or product management. So instruction is part of what we do, and then the other part is access to opportunities. So that's helping our grads find jobs. It's also just helping connect people in the community. So putting on events like this to get you introduced to some great design resources and great designers. We also had a panel last week called Women in Tech. So lots of fun things going on all the time. So we've been around for about 4 years. We started in New York 4 years ago, and now we're in 13 locations globally. So all throughout the United States, also in London, Hong Kong, Sydney, and Melbourne. And just came to Austin this past December, so we're very excited to be here. We have classrooms on 6th and Congress in the WeWork co-working space, so that's where we have a lot of our classes. But we also love to do different community events in different locations. So are very happy to be partnering with Capital Factory here. For those of you who are not familiar with Capital Factory, I'm sure most of you are, but a really great co-working space and incubator to help empower and encourage entrepreneurs. So that's enough of me talking. Hope to get to talk to you more afterwards, but I'm very excited to pass it over to Vitorio and Annette, two wonderful designers in the UX community who are going to tell you about some great resources here. So thanks all.
Hi guys, thanks for coming out. Let's get Vitorio mic'd as well. So we want this to be an informal chat and an introduction to what's really happening in Austin design community. And if you're new to town, if you are already working as a designer but you're looking for your tribe, if you want to become a designer, if you work at a company and you're hiring or need some design help, you should have some great information for you in this talk.
And if we don't have great information for you in this talk, there are feedback forms that you should fill out and write what we're missing.
So Danielle already said a little bit about General Assembly, and we just wanted to say thank you as well to Capital Factory for hosting us tonight with their great facility. And of course, there's tons of events in the tech community at large that happen at Capital Factory on a regular basis. So if you haven't been here before, this is someplace you should expect to be coming back to often. Victoria, did you have anything? So a little bit about us. My name is Annette Priest. I am a designer, a researcher, and a UX strategist. I split my time between Austin and London. I've been working in design for a really long time now, and I work on all kinds of different things, everything from healthcare to mobile apps to lately, a startup working on a new product for journalists. And I have my own practice. I'm in private practice now.
And I don't do anything at all, but I do run a calendar at austinux.org. We'll be talking about that a bit, where I track design events across the entire design community, tracking over 20 design meetups and related groups right now. And that's where a lot of this information comes from, that work that I do.
And Vitorio is actually overly modest. He's quite a talented designer, and he's got his finger on the pulse of things. He coordinates office hours, UX office hours for Austin ATX Startup Week as one of the many things that he does to contribute to the local community.
There wasn't any room for that on the slide, though.
He did the slides, by the way, so the typos are all his. So just a little bit of housekeeping for tonight. Hopefully everybody's got a name tag on. If you don't, please make sure that you get one later. we want to make sure that you're able to meet other folks that are like-minded and that are suited to your particular needs. So if you are looking to become a designer, if you're looking for work, if you're looking to hire, all of those things are good to know on your badge.
If you're hiring, do we have companies that are here that are actually looking to hire designers tonight? A few? Great. Make sure you've got something on your badge that says you're hiring, either one of the stickers or having written in. It really helps people to find you afterwards, and it's that kind of visibility we'll be talking about as well later in the deck.
So at the end of our session this evening, we've got some feedback forms for you to fill out as well, because we're designers and we always love to improve things and understand how well or not well we're doing. So please take a few minutes at the end of the event to make sure you fill that in.
And then finally, if you haven't been here to Capital Factory before, the first question everybody asks is, where are the bathrooms? You came in from the elevators, go straight past the reception desk. Men's are on the left, women's are on the right.
So let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
So we focused on just a few things for this deck. This is the first time we've given this talk. The Austin design community is absolutely huge, but we have to pick and choose. So we focused on resources for UX, UI, and graphic design, specifically around things that are valuable for tech companies. If you are not a tech company, if you are really looking for somebody to help you with branding or advertising, you're not going to get as much out of this talk as you might, but please do write out how disappointed you are on those feedback forms so we can fix it for the future.
And create an event just for you. By the way, you're out of luck if you are interested in any of these things.
Yeah, like I said, there are meetups for all kinds of things in Austin. If you are here for product management and like physical product design, if you're here for data viz, if you're here for branding and advertising or art instruction, we're not going to talk about any of that stuff. I'm really sorry. But again, feedback forms. We'll fix it next time.
So without further ado, let's actually talk.
Okay. You go first.
No, you.
All right, so in 2008 and 2009, design in Austin was kind of in bad shape. There weren't a lot of meetups. There was AIGA, there was a Flash meetup, a design and media meetup, and a web design and development meetup that had recently started merging with Refresh Austin itself, so that was already being combined into another general web meetup. Then a designer in town threw a happy hour, and then like 150 people showed up, and none of them knew each other, which was really surprising basically to everyone.
And especially in Austin, because everybody already knows everybody.
Right, you think it's a small town, and sometimes it turns out it's not. So in 2008 and 2009, 4 design groups all restarted around the same time, and that really kicked off a big avalanche in new design meetups forming and people realizing the community had grown and Austin had really become coming to its own as far as design and tech is. What am I saying? I don't even know. Go to the next one.
Community. So let's talk about community for a minute. Vitorio has a diverse perspective on community in general. We're a little bit at odds here.
She means a negative perspective, but okay.
I do. He's a little bit down on community, not in terms of the need for it, but just what's happening in Austin. I'll just say that Austin is weird, right? That's part of the charm, and the design community in Austin is no exception. It's not like anywhere else.
Which means that weird, it's diverse, it's very distributed, which means it's what you make of it. So if you're expecting to come to a design meetup and just meet like all of the designers, or you're expecting to go to one place and be done with your design related stuff, that's not the way Austin is set up. It's pretty much up to you to find the meetups and organizations that will be valuable to you, which means visiting a lot of them, and it means regularly checking in on others on a regular basis, or to make sure that you are getting enough out of the community and to find people that you like and things that you like and learn more. And that counts for everything. Socializing, professional development. You want to learn a new skill. Classes are great, but you also need to practice that skill. You also need to have people who are more senior than you review your work that you've done in that new skill. Regularly going out into the community, talking to new people, finding new people is the way to do that.
And so there isn't one place, but that's part of the charm, I think. So you do have an opportunity, because there is so much diversity and because things are so decentralized, to really find the tribes that fit with you and your personality and your particular wants and needs as a professional.
That also means, though, if you're looking to hire a designer, it's kind of a pain sometimes. It's very hard to find the kinds of designers that you're looking for. It's hard to know where to go. Certain groups meet up very irregularly, so it's hard to get that audience. So being active is really, really important. So, and I say that because in 2012 I wrote like this huge research essay on Austin's design community, which the conclusion is that there is no such thing as the Austin design community. There's no like place.
There is no spoon.
Rather, it's a loose collection of micro-communities. A great example are any large company, right? Any company that employs more than a handful of designers. People go to work, and they get all of their like work and shop talk done at work, and then that's it. And then they go home, and then they go do something else. They have like hobbies and a real life and things like that. So they don't necessarily seek out designers in other places, in other communities. They don't seek out to necessarily learn other things. And then all of a sudden it's 18 months later and they just got laid off and they have no idea what's going on. And they have no idea who to network with or how to find their next job. So that active professional maintenance and grooming of your role in the community is really, really important.
And I really can't underscore that enough. It really is important. I think that one of the challenges that we face in Austin specifically is our geography, right? And our commutes and our transportation. So this town is very large geographically. You know, it's something like 30 miles from one end to the other. And there's lots of other cities that are that large, but they've got the infrastructure to get you in and out of a central city quicker using public transit. We're all over the place. We've got.
How long did it take you to find it?
It took me 20 minutes just to find parking. So I live in Northwest Austin. Some of you would consider that South Waco.
Yeah.
So that's okay. You know, you south of the river hippies, you're cool too. And of course we've got East Austin now. And as the city continues to grow larger and larger, we're becoming a bit more insular in terms of our geography. So I've seen it change dramatically, that people still had the willingness to drive to different parts of town after work to meet up with other people. Now it's like, really, you're gonna fight traffic? So a big shout out to all of you for coming downtown tonight,
yes,
especially for those of you who don't live downtown.
So we're gonna talk about, first, the big three design associations in town. There are dozens of other design-related meetups, but the big three are these three. They've been around the longest, they have the most membership. They also have more of a general membership. They are less tailored than some of the other meetups. You'll find meetups with only 100 members and only 7 or 8 people show up every time, and they're very, very niche. These are the big ones that you'll want to pay attention to.
And so, Vitorio, for some of our newbies who are not familiar with this particular space because they're not already designers, can you talk us through a little bit more about that? Like, what does AIGA stand for?
AIGA doesn't stand for anything anymore. AIGA used to be an association for graphic designers. It was like the American... Hey Bart, what did AIGA used to stand for?
American Institute for Graphic Arts.
American Institute for Graphic Arts.
I'm not even a graphic designer when I do that.
I'm not a graphic designer, so I don't have to know that. The IXDA was formed in 2007-ish, specifically around interaction design and user experience. And UXPA was originally UPA, usability professional, so it was very traditional human factors, very academic, very research-oriented.
There was a coup recently, though, and they added the X.
So now it's the User Experience Professionals Association. And
very controversial.
Much drama was to be had.
Lots of drama.
So IXDA. IXDA is a local chapter of the Interaction Design Association. Their mailing list supports 1,500 members, one of the biggest ones in town. Joining IXDA means joining the local Austin mailing list. There's no membership fees, there's no need to join the national organization. You can just be on the local IXDA Austin mailing list and find out about all the events and say you're a member and so on and so forth. You can also join the National IXDA, of course, and that's free as well. IXDA doesn't hold events regularly, but when they do, they tend to be big name speakers, famous designers you'd have heard of, panels of people who are in for a South by, and then they just get everybody into a room, and then 300 other designers show up for the talk. It's focused very much on user experience and interaction design, and it tends to be focused more on practical methods, talks about case studies and real experience, than more philosophical things, although they do have talks like that. Also, every other month there is a lunch meetup, which is kind of like the regular event, and I used to run those, and now Inga de Bleeker and Jeff Nuria have taken them over. So if you're around and you want to have lunch on Wednesday with a bunch of designers, you can go to Central Market on North Lamar.
And that's kind of nice. It's kind of centrally located, and it's great to be able to just informally chat with other people that are practicing, and you can use them as a sounding board for different.
There's no agenda.
That's right. So there's different. You can bring a particular challenge that you might be struggling with in your own practice, and use them as a sounding board and just get some advice.
Some of the recent events that they have held over the last 6 months or so, a happy hour, a social lunch, I guess that would have been November. Russ Unger came into town. He gave a talk on Jim Henson and prototyping, based on Jim Henson's work with puppets. We did, as Annette mentioned earlier, office hours for, design-related office hours for startups. We had 20 some odd startups show up for that. And Robert Hochman Jr., who now lives in Austin, gave a talk about his book, The Tao of UX.
So who's in IXDA?
All right, handful of people, great.
So it's an interesting mix, Vitorio.
Yeah, so we don't actually know, we don't actually have IXDA doesn't have
These are not official statistics.
These are not official numbers.
We've not tracked anybody or pierced anyone's ears and observed them in the wild.
But when I statistically sampled the list of members in IXDA, it's about 40% designers, and that's designers of all kinds, graphic designers, visual designers, interaction designers, user experience designers, 40% managers, directors, creative directors, product managers, things like that, and 20% everybody else, and that includes developers and recruiters. So you do get a very general population of design-related interests at an IXDA meeting. And with that, if you do show up at an IXDA meeting, it tends to be about 75% or more members. So you'll see that kind of breakdown when you attend meetings.
I think that's nice too, because that means that you're more likely to see people again the next time you go to an event.
At least people like you, and people like those kinds of people. Tori Breitling runs IXDA. I just help her out with stats and running events and things like that. And she organizes most of the events. So if you are interested in being a member and you have questions, if you want to sponsor the event and sponsor an IXDA event and talk about a job that you have or a product or something like that, all of those things go to her. And IXDA Austin is a Ning site, so ixdaaustin.ning.com is where you go. And this deck and these URLs will all be online later.
So switching gears to UXPA.
And that used to run UXPA. Back when it was UPA.
Back when it was Tri Austin, which was something else completely, a million years ago.
So they're around 500 members on their mailing list right now. It is a local chapter of the Professionals Association. Joining the local chapter is the same as IXDA. It just means joining the mailing list, and that's free. You can also be a member of UXPA proper, of the national organization, as a Professionals Association. And that's a separate paid yearly membership, 2 different tiers. They do hold events pretty regularly. We have somebody from UXPA here, right? Lawrence, you want to stand up and wave hi to the crowd?
I'm here.
If you have questions about UXPA later, you can attack Lawrence.
Or just hug him, he's friendly.
Or that. They do hold events fairly regularly, first Tuesday of the month. They're focused on educational and networking events. And they've also recently partnered with STC on the salary survey, and that's a really important thing. So if you're looking to be a designer, if you're looking to hire designers, the best way to know what the market rates are for designers is to either look at the salary survey or participate in the salary survey.
Oh, participate, please. So even if you don't ever go to a UXPA event locally, when you see the link come around, is it in the spring, I think?
Yeah, it should be soon, right?
When you see a link come around, please take 5 minutes and fill out this survey, because you're helping yourself get a better understanding of what the market rates are. That's going to help you with your own salary negotiations. So
I really like it when people realize that they're really underpaid, and then they go to the boss with it, and it's either like, look,
or they get another job.
Exactly. We want you to have good jobs. Leave all the bad places. Only work at good places. Some recent UXPA events, design thinking workshop, lean UX in the enterprise, a happy hour, usability testing, narrative taxonomy. I don't even know what that was, but I was in there. But I'm sure it was great. UXPA doesn't have hard numbers on their membership, but they believe it to be around 35% UX people, 45% researchers, again, going back to the original academic, research-heavy orientation of the original membership, and then 20% everybody else.
I would also like to clarify that researchers and managers can be UX people too.
Yeah, I guess.
Really?
Sorry. If you attended a UXP event for the first time, it's been pretty evenly split. So you'll see that breakdown, but you'll also see a bunch of people that they don't know about, maybe aren't even members, things like that. And a 7-person volunteer board organizes UXPA meetings and events. You can visit their meetup group, and you'll notice the number of board members is important because the more people that are participating actively in an organization means the more likely those events will happen on a regular basis and be the kinds of events that you want to happen. So if you're looking to get more involved in the community, if you're looking to get more out of your profession, volunteering with one of these organizations is a great way to do that.
Can I say a little bit more about that? So regarding the challenge that we've had in Austin and the diversity of these organizations and the longevity or lack thereof of some of them is due to not enough people volunteering. We get a couple of charismatic leaders who come in and really kick butt and get something organized, but it doesn't wind up being sustainable because there's not enough support. Eventually that person or persons get burnt out, and then that event, that organization goes away. So we're kind of reaching a critical mass, I think, in terms of Austin's growth in the past couple of years. And that's partly why we have so many of these niche events starting up, which is great. But some consolidation and some continuity would be a really great thing. And that really depends on all of you participating.
Yeah, I never recommend people start their own new meetup because then you have all of the same problems everybody else does. Rather, go join some other meetup that could use the help and start your event as part of that. You get access to their membership base and marketing and everything else, and it goes so much better for everyone.
And they would probably love to have you just in terms of helping out with their programming, right? So if you're going to have some kind of an ongoing event that's maybe once every quarter, that takes some pressure off of them in terms of speakers that they need to get.
AIGA, we have people from AIGA here too tonight, don't we? Bart, stand up, wave hi to the crowd. Bart is the current AIGA Austin president. Thanks for coming out. So AIGA, whose initials don't mean anything, 600 paid members. AIGA, just like UXPA, is also a professional organization. What's different here is that joining actually means you join the national AIGA chapter and say that your local chapter is Austin. So you are a full AIGA member to be an AIGA member, and there's no way around it. There's a Friends of AIGA mailing list, but it doesn't give you any of the special access, like advanced access to anything. You kind of really want to join. They will hold multiple events a month. They're often focused each on a special interest group. So one event that they hold will be, lettering or type design, and they'll hold that kind of thing quarterly. Another might be UI UX, another might be printmaking. AIGA again originally had this graphic design focus, graphics, prints, physical, tangible media. But recently, with new interactive specialty board member, they've been focusing on those kinds of needs that the other groups in town don't do. So you'll see a lot of really interesting, unique events like tours of studios, talks by local designers that might not get attention anywhere else, and things like that. Talks such as with local design agency Bakery, Hebert, something on printmaking and papermaking, and local design agency Idean, which we'll talk about a little bit later too. Because membership is a paid membership in a professional organization, you have the most concentrated membership of designers with over 75% design professionals in AIGA. Because it's also professionals, really small events will go out to the membership first and then fill up. And you'll never be able to attend them if you just see them on social media. The ones that go out to social media tend to be about more 50-50 members and non-members. AIGA has a 20-person volunteer board, which is how they're able to handle all the events that they do. And such that they have a dedicated membership director and a dedicated sponsorship director to ask questions about their things. And of course, Bart is here, and if you have questions about AIGA, you can hug him after the talk.
So that's the big three. What else?
The other ones were the ones we're not going to talk about. There are over 20 other design meetups in town. I'm going to show you a list, and it's already out of date. We made the slide yesterday, and I added one to the list this morning. There are also big name agencies in town. We have a Frog Office, we have RGA now, Razorfish, IBM, Pentagram has people in Austin. And there are tons of small studios and agencies, all doing really big work for really big name clients. Austin is really big in that sense and really diverse. And we're going to talk about some of the problems that means if you're looking to hire designers or work for one of these places. That's because every design group and meetup has its own audience. So we're going to show you that list in a second, and they're all niche. Those three are the big general ones, but the niche ones means that you have to visit them. You have to see what they're about in order to see if they're the kinds of people you want to hang out with, or the things you want to learn. And
it's kind of like trying to find a new favorite pair of jeans. You've got to go to a lot of stores, and you've got to try a lot on.
That's why I wear slacks all the time now.
So formal.
Because people tend to find meetups. It's like going to work. You go to work somewhere, you see the same designers over and over again, you talk to them all the time, you don't seek out anything new, and then you don't know what to do with yourself once that goes away.
So here's that list, that out-of-date, incomplete
now out-of-date list. Like STC, Society for Technical Communication, Creative Mornings, there's breakfast talks. Austin Content is for writers, content marketers, copywriters, and they get into other things like IA and UX because of that. Agile Austin is a UX special interest group, which is a lot about interfacing with programmers, but so is Lean UX. It's tons and tons of specialty groups. They're all worth your time to look into.
But really, I would suggest just following Vitorio on Twitter.
So austinux.org. At the very top of austinux.org is a list of all of those groups and links to all of them. You can just go and open all of them in tabs and look at them and sign up for each of their mailing lists, sign up for each of them individually. It's really the best way to keep it up to date. We have a question. This presentation, yeah, so it's being recorded right now. You'll have to rewatch the live stream, and the slides are online. In fact, I tweeted that link to the slides just a minute ago. If you go follow me on Twitter, you'll see them right now.
Multitasking at its finest, very impressive.
I wasn't actually going to speak. I was just going to put snarky comments on Twitter, but then Annette handed me a microphone.
So he's pre-tweeted all his snarky comments about
me.
That's right.
It's
That's great.
Very impressive.
So you want to be a designer. Who wants to be a designer?
All right, yeah.
This part is for you.
The other part was for you, too.
That's true.
I want to reiterate something very important that some people tend to forget, is that design is a studio art. It doesn't matter what kind of design it is, it's a studio art.
What do you mean, studio art? You're all highbrow over there.
I mean, you should, do some work and then have somebody yell at you about it and tell you it sucks, and then you should do it again. And that repeats forever. Sometimes the yelling is structured critique, and sometimes it's just yelling. Depends on who your art professor is.
So, critique?
Yeah. So, if you have an academic arts background, you learn real critique, which is a very structured, non-personal way of tearing your work to shreds.
Nothing personal, though.
Nothing personal. Very good way to, learn what's wrong with your work and learn how to fix it and learn how to make it better and learn why. If you don't have an academic background, you often lose that, and then when somebody criticizes your work, it feels very personal. So getting that experience is really important to be able to do things like present to clients and not just wonder, do they like it, as in do they like me? And also dealing with things in in-house counsel, as an in-house designer in a corporation and things like that. dealing with stakeholders, dealing with clients. It's all very important.
So if you want to get started, General Assembly is one avenue. You can take a class with me. I teach a couple of classes through them.
But one-off classes are great if you already know design, if you already have certain amounts of experience. A one-off class isn't going to give you that kind of studio access.
I'm not going to be a designer after spending 2 hours in a class.
You won't have a lot of experience in design if you only spent 2 hours in a class.
So disappointing.
You really want to do whatever it is you just learned, you want to practice it, and you want to practice it over and over again, and you want to get somebody who's better than you to tell you what you're doing wrong and how you can make it better. It's the only way you will get better. And if you go to meetups, you can find those people.
So another avenue is Austin Center for Design.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of places that aren't just one-off classes, where you do get that regular studio environment. So John Cope co-founded the Austin Center for Design, and it's taught by him and other practitioners in town. He teaches both interaction design and social entrepreneurship, which means starting a startup to solve a social problem. Use your design skills to do good in the world.
This does not mean like learning how to talk to people at cocktail parties, not that kind of social problem.
No, like they partner with a group like the Austin Resource Center for the Homeless or a school lunch program and solve design issues around those kinds of things. It's an entire year-long program, nights and weekends, $12,000. If you're a high-powered tech executive and you just need to understand design, they also have a 10-day intensive for almost just as much, which is really cool, I think. The Iron Yard, they're new in town. They came into town right around the same time General Assembly did, I think. They're a vocational school. They teach web design, and their web design course gets into HTML and CSS and JavaScript as well, but it starts out with the principles of design. That's a 12-week full-time course, again, $12,000. And these full-time courses, they tend to say they do mean full-time. It's not a nights and weekends thing. They mean you're spending 8 hours a day in class, and then several hours after that doing homework. We talked about General Assembly. A little more specific about General Assembly's stuff. They have a 10-week full-time UX design immersive, and also a 12-week evenings program, which actually sounds really interesting, especially because it's half the price of anything else on this list. If you really like being a nerd, you can go to the UT School of Information.
And get a real degree?
And get a real degree. UT School of Information, they're going to kick my ass for saying this, but it was originally the School of Library Sciences. So all of their degree stuff tends to have a very rigorous, academic, research-oriented, usability-oriented bent. You're not going to learn visual design there at all.
But you would learn like information architecture?
You would learn information architecture, taxonomy design, archival practices, which are really important on really big sites. But it's all graduate level courses, which means you can audit them. And auditing at UT is very inexpensive. It's like $20 a class. But that also means you don't do the homework, which means you don't get the studio time. So the best thing to do—
Which means you're not a real designer?
It means you just don't have the practice.
Practice.
You can be a non-degree graduate student, though. You still have to register and apply, but you get to do the homework, but you don't have to worry about the grades.
So if you're worried about being accepted, it's maybe a good idea to audit or try to be non-degree? Do you have to be accepted to be non-degree?
You have to be accepted to be non-degree, but if you're not actually pursuing a degree, they'll just let you in because it's just money for them.
And these are graduate level courses, so does that mean I have to take the GRE?
No. Not for non-degree graduate students.
Oh, not for non-degree. Well, that's good to know.
If you don't actually want your PhD in library science, you don't have to worry about it so much. If you do want a design degree and other kinds of design stuff, you can go to UT's College of Fine Arts and get a bachelor's degree in design. This is real, high-level, broad-spectrum design stuff. You cover all kinds of topics: graphic design, modeling, physical stuff, architectural kinds of things. Of course, that means getting another bachelor's degree. I don't know if that's necessarily what you need.
But you would get critique, right?
You would get lots of practice because you'd be spending 4 years at it. A better option might be Austin Community College. I have taken art classes at ACC. It's $85 a credit hour, What's offered varies based on semester and location, but there's like 5 or 6 ACC campuses now. You can get certificates, but you don't have to. You can just take a course, and it's 3 to 5 hours a week, and you get that. And because they're design courses, they are 3 to 5 hours a week, and that includes 2 or 3 hours of studio time a week. So you are getting that practice for the visual design, web design, interaction design courses. And so that's a really good option to get that long-term reinforcement.
So you need to hire a designer?
I don't need to hire a designer.
You don't need to hire. Who else needs to hire a designer? Anybody need to hire? Hey, there's some hands. Okay. This is for you.
I'm really sorry if you have to hire a designer because it's kind of hard right now. It's an employee's market. And lots of Austin companies have trouble hiring in any kind of tech position right now, not just designers. But we're going to talk about designers for the most part. This is generally applicable, though. The core issues are the same. It's the Austin market is weird. You have particular expectations about what's necessary for your employees that maybe aren't realistic in the current market environment, and the fact that it's an employee's market. Specifically around design has specializations. I do mostly user research right now, non-interaction design, which means I'm really good to ask if you need help with a survey and not so good if you need like a brand new Google material design Android app or something. All of these things require different kinds of thinking. If I'm doing user research, I am basically a professional idiot. I am supposed to literally not know anything.
Did you just insult me?
Yes. I'm supposed to not know.
Professional idiot.
I'm supposed to go into a subject not knowing anything and learn about it. Whereas an interaction designer is supposed to take that research and come up with the correct solution for it. And then a visual designer is supposed to have good taste and make it look really nice, but that means putting something of yourself into something. That means that's an art. Those are 3 very different things.
I hope we don't get into fisticuffs up here, but user researchers are not professional idiots. If you're going to hire a user researcher, you need to be hiring somebody who's well-trained in research and in how to properly design and structure studies and research, who understands different kinds of bias, who understands how to recruit the right people, and how to craft different research tools to get the best responses. Professional idiot. Shame.
This would have gone so much better if I had just put that on Twitter.
You tweeted that already, didn't you? I just know it.
Maybe. The other thing is a lot of companies look for unicorns. They look for somebody who can do all of those roles and more. And the problem is that you might find a junior designer who has done all of those things once. But that means they're going to be doing it only for the second time on your project. They'll be learning on the job, using the work that you think is really important and they think is just practice. If you find a senior designer who's done those, who's been in the industry for years and years and years, and has done all of them for years and years and years, they're going to be really expensive. I don't even want to know what your rates are.
You can't afford it.
I'm sure I can't. Anything else?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say about this, for the folks that are hiring, you do have a particular set of challenges in terms of understanding what your specific needs are for these different types of work and trying to interview the candidates to get the best ones, right? So unless you know a little bit about each of these, how will you know that you're getting a good hire?
I like rolling the dice myself and just hiring randomly.
Well, so the one solution to this about knowing if you're going to get a good hire is kind of try before you buy.
Yeah, so you don't need a unicorn. You can hire consultants. You can hire contractors. A good question.
What about people who tend to be unicorns? Because I've kind of fit into that situation right now because I have front-end and design experience. So where would I lie?
So somebody's asking if they consider themselves a unicorn, where do they fit? So again, this would go better on Twitter, but I put unicorns in 2 buckets. Either junior level, like I haven't chosen a specialization, which means I haven't gone deep in anything, or a senior level person who has spent years in each particular trade craft and has gone deep in all of them as a result, and as a result is very expensive. I have a hard time believing that there are many true unicorns because of that. You've got to have specialized in something. You go deep in one or two things, and you're very light in other things. And if you haven't, mid-career unicorns, mid-career generalists, I don't.
Maybe you want to look at the gaps that you might have and try to pursue something that will expand your skill set.
Deepen.
Or deepen.
Make it, have a specialization in something.
Two issues. There's deep, there's broad, and then there's deep broads. Right?
Yes.
No. It's falling
I don't know
apart.
where that was going.
Don't touch it.
Okay, go back. I always want to touch on a couple things. There are a lot of ways to get around the unicorn thing. It's really hard to find them. There are other ways to do it. You can hire consultants, you can hire contractors. For the price of one unicorn, you can hire 2 or 3 junior designers and train them up in the different specialties you need. You can hire consultants just for piecework on different aspects. You can hire junior designers and then hire specialists to mentor them and critique them, giving you the kind of work that a senior person might do without having to pay so much for it, because you have the junior designers churning on it. And consider hiring designers. I used to work for a consulting company that did that. They offered, you can hire the consulting company to interview all your candidates. If you've never hired a designer before, find a designer to help you hire one. Don't just guess.
Yeah, and so I would say that it's critical for some of these strategies to have somebody senior, unless you yourself are an expert in these particular fields. Because if you're hiring junior designers and you yourself don't have the skills to train them, how are you going to get that quality work?
How do you know you're hiring the right person?
And now Vitorio gets surly.
This is the sad part of the talk. Not like everything else I've said isn't sad, but designers in Austin don't need your job. A lot of designers in Austin are in Austin to live the Austin lifestyle, which means sleeping in, walking their dog, going down to Barton Springs.
Don't mess with my quality of life, man.
And if you are an Austin company that really wants your designer to work 9 to 5 from your Austin office up in Parmer, that doesn't work for them. And the company I work for now has had people explicitly turn them down. It's just like, yeah, this is a really cool office, man, but I can't ever see myself commuting like 20 minutes. That's just too much.
I really wish we had titled this slide, all right, all right, all right.
So if you are putting yourself in those limits, you are competing against all of the remote places that all of those Austin designers are capable of working for.
And again, the geography that I was speaking to earlier.
I think South Dallas is funnier than South Waco,
Is
personally.
it? Okay, I'll work on that.
The way you compete against companies that are remote and don't require anybody to show up in the office is to make that designer your #1 priority. Make your appearance in the community, make your support of Austin be a visible priority for your company. You have to go out, not just don't send an HR rep out, don't send an external recruiter out. You personally, you the hiring manager, and all of their future coworkers need to show up and enforce at meetups and events, at sponsorship for things, and look for people and come to them and say, you are really cool, I want to hire you, and I'm going to come to like the next 5 or 6 meetups that you're going to be at and remind you that I want you to come work for me. You have to make these people feel like
Special.
They're the
Special
top banana.
snowflakes.
Because that's what they don't get when they are working remotely for some big anonymous client in some other state.
So show up, be cool, be friendly.
The story I like to tell is there was a lunch where the CEO of Indeed came to apologize to one of the designers for not being able to hire them fast enough before they took another offer. That's a lot of ass kissing. And everybody else at the lunch was like, holy cow. But that designer will always think about Indeed the next time they're looking for work.
And everybody else who was there.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And one of those things you can do is you can help out those meetups. Every meetup has the same kinds of problems. They can't find a space large enough to host their events. They can't find food and drink sponsors. They need help finding speakers, and they need help organizing the events themselves. If you can provide help in these areas, you get to go up in front of that meetup, that 100 people, 150 people, this whole room, and say, hey, I work for such and such a company, and we're looking for a designer like you. We sponsored this meetup. We're here in Austin. We love Austin. You can work from home 3 days a week. Just show up for your meetings once in a while. And
bring your dog to the office.
Bring your dog to whatever it is that you're pitching. Show that you are active in the community and help these meetups that are providing the audience for that.
So this is a real opportunity if you are looking to hire for you to get involved in the community and help solve some of these problems. In return, the community will solve your problem.
You do have to do that sponsorship, though. Every meetup controls access to that audience. So you can't email out to AIGA's 600 plus members without sponsoring that event. They're not just going to give you that access. You have to give them something in return. The same for IXDA's 1,500 member list. The same for UXPA's 500 member list. You have to have that activity for them.
And so one company has come to town recently, and they've done a pretty good job of getting out there.
Yeah, so IDEAN, we mentioned them earlier. They gave a talk with AIGA a while back, and they've sponsored 2 big local one-day conferences. They brought a bunch of big-name speakers to town to just raise the level of discussion about design in Austin. They threw a housewarming party as soon as they got here and invited the entire design community, and like 200 people rolled through their doors. They've really made an effort to be part of Austin. They have offices downtown, they have lunch at Easy Tiger, you see them around all of the time. Fun size as well. A couple local designers quit their jobs, started up their own agency, and now they sponsor podcasts. Now they trade office space with other designers. You can go work out of their offices and see the work that they're doing, and they can help you with the work you're doing, and it's very collegial. It's the kind of thing that is very Austin-y, and they're making sure that they are doing that.
So it's really up to you. The community relies on you. This is your town. You need to be part of this and build a community too. So get out there. Go find the meetups that are right for you. Find your particular tribe. It's okay if you try on a pair of jeans and it doesn't fit. You don't stop trying on jeans. You keep going until you find your favorite pair. So do the same thing with the meetups and the professional organizations around town until you find a good fit for you.
And then check it on them once in a while. The character of these organizations changes as the board members change, as the volunteers change, as design changes. And it's up to you to maintain that regular contact.
And now is the time for Q&A.
So, questions?
Just to kind of give a real world example of what you were talking about earlier.
Let me bring the mic to you.
Do I have to?
If you want to answer the question, yes.
Well, then I'll talk and get quiet. To give a kind of real world example of what you were talking about earlier with getting into design and building something and then getting it torn down and then redoing it. I've been working on my personal website lately, and I came up with an initial design for it, and I thought it was good. So I was just like, well, I'll see what my design friends have to say about it. So I took it to them. They gave me some really, really rough critique, and that's something you really have to get into the right mind frame to. You want to go to designs that they're not going to be friendly to you. They're going to be honest, they're going to be to the point, and they're going to be rough. And taking that feedback, I was able to redesign it, tear it down almost completely, and redesign it to something much more palatable to most people. So there's my story.
And is there a question, Bill?
No.
So I would say that's some tough love, and hopefully they weren't too personal.
Oh, no. I love talking about that.
I'm in the solar industry, and the big new breakout market is software and getting utilities to be a little bit more customer centric. But where would you say a good start would be to get more familiar with the utility end user experience, to be more adept and be on top of that type of experience for?
That sounds like
Great
a job
cares.
for a researcher.
You're interested in the utility experience specifically for customer experience of different utilities? Is that what the question is?
Right, for the ratepayers who expect a certain experience, but the utilities are only providing a certain experience. It's mainly a disruptive opportunity. I'm just interested in which place to start.
Yeah. So you want to talk to a consultant like me who can help you with user research, or some of the other professional groups, UXPA might be a good place to start. If you're looking for comparative or competitive research, I would say secondary research is what you want to look at. I don't know if Forrester covers that. They cover different verticals.
There are market research firms in town.
And different industries, but there's probably something published already that you could find online.
So I know you guys talked about like a variety of different classes and things that you guys can take in order to sort of get your feet wet in UX stuff. But for people that are sort of like on a budget crunch, would you guys have any advice on like free sort of websites or programs out there like Code Academy, but for a design sort of focus? Just because like I have no design experience and I kind of want to understand what design is all about. So
I would say events like this are your best friend, and the library is your best friend.
Yeah, there's a lot of books. For example, if you have a programming background, David Canavy has a book, Design for Hackers, which is designed from a programming bent. Jeff Raskin wrote a book called The Humane Interface, which is usability from a technical and engineering perspective, which would be good ways. But again, without that regular practice, to really make sure you've understood. To really make sure you've understood what it is you've just read, what it is you've just learned. I don't know that you would necessarily produce good designs without having somebody oversee it. And it's that oversight that a studio process gives you, and of course that costs somebody's time.
But if you're just looking for exposure and to kind of dip a toe into the water, and
going through books and going through exercises that are in the books are the fastest way to go.
We're very fortunate to have environments for humans here in Austin and officing out of Capital Factory, and they're very generous with some of their online events and will allow occasionally people to sit in. So Christopher Schmidt in the back, that's who you want to talk to.
And online courses like lynda.com or Skillshare, those are great places. They're fairly cheap, and you can learn a lot of background stuff with that. Lynda, L-Y-N-D-A.
Just kind of an overview. It's called Hack Designs, and it kind of walks you through like, oh, here's the overview, here's like a little exercise, not so much practice, but just like you want to understand the foundation.
You have other questions?
Other questions?
Hello.
Okay, so I graduated with a degree in graphic design, visual communications, and I sort of pursued this other thing that I thought was another thing while I was doing my undergrad, and it was web development and with an emphasis in the front end. So I'm trying to kind of figure out where I fit into this whole design development type of realm right now, and I'm wondering if you guys have any advice for a young professional just starting out. Like, I have a passion for design, I also have a passion for code, I don't know where to go.
Could you be a budding unicorn?
Yeah, a budding unicorn.
I think I need you to take your hat off so I can see if there's a little horn. There it is! Yeah, it's a budding unicorn!
So having an understanding of development is really valuable for designers, because it means you can call bullshit on a developer that doesn't want to implement the nice thing that you just designed. Very important. Not that developers ever lie to you about what they can do, but sometimes...
He says call bullshit. I say keeping people honest.
That too. So that's really valuable. An interesting transition for graphic designers and visual artists is into UI design and specializing in UI toolkits, because now you have you have the visual taste to understand what makes a good UI, but you can specialize in the media of a specific human interface guideline, like Google Materials, iOS 8 specifically, and that kind of thing. And so that's a great way to transition and mix the two.
And so we have to be very careful because UI is not UX.
That's right.
However, UX doesn't really exist without UI.
You can't have, I mean, you gotta touch or talk to or interact with something.
Yeah, kind of have to. Yeah. So I think you're in a very unique position, and I would say to continue to develop in both areas. I mean, if you can pursue design, but also, maintain your coding abilities too, then that uniquely positions you.
You'll see a lot of people say designers should learn to code, but nobody ever says developers should learn to design. What you really want is just...
I say it.
What you really want is an understanding of...
We could have a whole nother event about this. It's like the separation of church and state,
of the medium you're working
law.
And as a designer, you are working in the medium of a program. And so having some understanding of what that means is valuable to you.
Hi, so meetups are great, but I was wondering if there are any online communities or Twitter lists or maybe a Slack chat room just online where you can discuss recent news or design-related articles. Is there anything like that for Austin specifically?
So in 2012, there wasn't. When I did a bunch of research about this stuff. Recently, there are 2 Slack chat rooms. I don't remember.
I know there's one for UX, but I don't think that it's Austin specific.
There is in the Slack chat room, there's a group, local_Austin, which is 30 people in it, which is...
Not anymore.
There aren't really a lot. You can follow the people
Send me an email.
that Austin UX follows on Twitter. The Austin UX account only follows Austin or Austin-related designers. Sometimes they're former Austin designers. A lot of people leave town because of the problems we talked about. They can't find the right job for them that helps them maintain that lifestyle. There aren't a lot of great places. Meeting people in person is still the best way to go in town.
Cool. Thanks.
Got a question back here?
So earlier you were kind of talking about unicorns and sort of discouraging hirers from looking for unicorns. So in terms of being the freelancer or being the design person who's looking for a job and someone's trying to only hire a unicorn, I mean, there's a difference between being like, these people are out of touch and I don't even want to apply for this job because if I get it, it's going to be horrible, and sort of helping to educate the employer and nicely nudging them to help them understand what your expertise is and what you should be hired for versus what they're looking for is not very sustainable or silly. Or do you have any advice about that from the freelancer or the employee's perspective?
I like not applying for those jobs ever. And you can tell what those jobs are because they've been open forever, because they do have unrealistic requirements and they do have unrealistic expectations. I don't have good advice around that because I have such a negative attitude.
Any way to start that conversation?
And that negative reinforcement that Vitorio is mentioning is sometimes the best way to train employers out of those bad job descriptions.
From inside, I've had a lot of success in educating my HR people and educating my managers about the kinds of designers they should be looking for and why. But that also comes from having an internal knowledge of the products and internal knowledge of what they really need and explaining in no uncertain terms what they'll get out of one versus the other. From the outside, I don't know.
My advice regarding that is, do you have a personal connection at the company? That sometimes can help. In terms of what skill set you are bringing to the table, you need to understand how valuable that is to that particular industry and that employer. It's not the same value across the board. So some industries might be like, yeah, whatever you do, user research, we don't really care about that. Even though they need it desperately, they're not mature enough to know that. Some of it is How much pain are you willing to personally endure in your career by working for an organization that is not ready for you? Because if you take that job, you will suffer. You will. So you just have to figure out what your pain threshold is and how much you want to work for that company. It could be like, maybe you're like a super fan of that particular company and they're just really aligned with your values in general, and you really want to work for them, and maybe you're willing to tolerate some of that other stuff because you feel fulfilled enough in this other area. It's all very personal.
I want to emphasize the personal connection part. I mean, that's a really good point, that going through HR is one thing. You have to tick a certain amount of boxes to get through the HR process. But if you know the person who's hiring on a personal level, and you can convince the person who has the requirements that you are the right person for that job, they can tell HR, hire this person now. And you can skip all of that.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of, design is a lot about relationships, and trust is a huge part of that. And so if you already have some kind of trust established, whatever job you're applying for is going to be that much easier for you to get. Did we have a question over here? Can I get you to come here because you're in a feedback zone?
Who are the top mobile design firms in Austin?
Let's back up, because I have research skills. I'm going to ask him to clarify what he means by top. Do you mean most popular? What do you mean top?
Obviously there's like Razorfish and the big guys, or there's some good boutique ones that have had recent success that may be, less expensive, but who just has really high quality people and talent?
All of them. So I got asked, somebody asked me, what are the top designers? And there's a great story. Do you remember the IA Summit? What's his name? Jesse James Garrett. So Jesse James Garrett, big name designer, founded Adaptive Path, gets up in front of an audience of like 250 designers and goes, name some famous designers, name some designers who do really great work. And everybody starts yelling out names. It's like, okay, now name the works of design that they are famous for. And nothing. The audience is silent. And so the problem with saying who are the top design firms, who are the top designers, if you don't know the work, what is your metric? Is it signed big clients? Is it signed big deals? Is it got written up in TechCrunch? When people come to me and say, who are really good designers, I say, look for works of design that you like. Find an app that you think works really well. Find a visual that is very attractive and appeals to you, and then find out who made it. And that's a good designer for the product that they made, for the market, for the user that they made it for.
Otherwise, you're just judging based on PR.
It's just popularity. It's a popularity contest in any other way. Because Austin is small, every firm in town has landed one or more major clients at some point in its career. You have huge clients.
Yeah, I'm a tiny private practice, and I've got big, crazy multinationals as clients.
So what you really want to do is you want to find apps or sites or works of design that address the same kinds of markets that your users are in, and then find out who made those.
So I think we can talk to you privately afterwards to get a little bit of a better idea. Maybe we can guide you a little bit more, but we want you to reframe your question just in general.
Alternately, if some of those shops would like to sponsor this event next time.
Yeah. Synergy.
Any other questions?
When I was hiring a designer about 2 years ago, every single resume, the person listed UI/UX as one of their skills, which is just does not tell me anything. So on both sides of it, I guess I have a question is, one, is someone hiring, how can you tell like the breadth of knowledge there? And then as someone that wants to differentiate themselves, how can they explain that better rather than just putting both together?
Can I ask what your job description was or what title you were advertising for?
Creative director.
Creative director.
For the last several years, I've required portfolios on all job applicants, even for researchers. I know. But it's the only way to see outside of the resume a thought process prior to bringing them in for an interview, to see that they have a body of work, that they've been professional enough to make sure that they've kept copies of that work, that they've groomed that portfolio and they've thought about that presentation because your resume is a design artifact meant for somebody else. It's not meant for you to make you feel good about yourself.
Now I'm going to argue with this completely.
Yes.
Because so many people can put together a portfolio, and I've seen it happen. The work samples are not their own, right? They've worked on a project. They're sending you an artifact that was from that project that they may have had nothing to do with. So that's not good, but you don't have any way of knowing if it's actually their work, and don't even get me started on the NDA stuff, right? And not opening you up for legal action, for being exposed to confidential information and soliciting that. What if they show you something for a direct competitor? There's, the can of worms. I'm stressed out just thinking about this. So what I would say is get really crisp and clean and clear on the work that you want done. Understand what the technical terms are for different things. Look for resumes that are including that and are speaking to a process specifically. Vet them through resources and connections. So if we talked about
Boston
relationships.
is a small town.
It's a small town, y'all.
You worked with somebody.
So if, interview people that you have somebody else who can vouch for them, right? So it's not really a reference check, but
It's
kind
quiet stalking on LinkedIn.
It is kind of, yeah, it is. And I would say that you want to, your interview process should have some exercises to demonstrate their approach to problem solving. Now, I'll say there's another can of worms here. Do not make your candidates work for free. It's highly unethical.
I want to know how I'll do in this product, so I'll just give them this product and make them do some work for it. No.
Bad. But you can have them do something similar, right? And kind of tailored, yes, and define a particular exercise or several, right? But no work for free.
We have time for one more question, and then we're supposed to let you go finish drinking. Anyone?
Question?
How do you recommend building a portfolio if everything that you work on at work is confidential?
So first, too late now, but don't sign contracts that require everything to be confidential. Second, there's always ways to do things like that. You can redact work. When I left my last company, part of my severance included documenting the list of things I wanted to put in my portfolio and having them reviewed and redacted, and then that way I made sure I got to display them. You can remake your work. That's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of work to remake your work.
But at the same time, I've seen, for example, researchers change all of the numbers in a research report and all of the names, but make it still be statistically correct, and now it's a portfolio piece. There are, as well as internships and doing entirely new work, of course.
I've run into this problem before, being surrounded by NDAs. One thing you could always do is, there's many ways that you can show your work, and what people ultimately want to do is see how you go about designing the design problem. So you can build an entire portfolio without mentioning what the product is, even who the client is, but what they ultimately want to see is your process. Like, I sketch, I wireframe, I do all these things. Ultimately, that's really important, and that way you don't get in trouble with not showing what you're not supposed to show. So
freelancers often transfer only the final product. Ownership means you own all of the work you did to get there, and that becomes your portfolio.
It depends entirely on the contract. And unless you're using your own contract.
Have a lawyer look at your contract. That's another thought too.
Yeah, so your options are redacting the work, remaking the work,
and doing new work.
I feel like there's something we're missing.
Lying, cheating, and stealing.
Oh, yes, of course. So even if you are covered by an NDA, work in the public domain is usually, again, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. Please consult your own legal counsel. But work that's in the public domain is exempted from that. So
So
even
once
if
your
you're
products
not,
come out.
right, even if you're not able to present your work product that was part of the development process, which you are not, you are bound by an NDA, once that goes live on the web, that's publicly accessible. Screenshots, videos of that, you produce that stuff away and put it in your own personal archive and you should be fine.
And that's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you, everybody. You've got Bart and Lawrence here from UXBA and AIJ if you want to talk to them about their groups. Otherwise, you got
Mix, mingle, hiring people,
Drinks are in the
find
back.
people who want to be hired.
talk to Danielle about GA. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.